Oh, hey,
Hey,
all right.
oh, yeah.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Jody stream with Nick and MLS dual streaming as usual every Tuesday
Hmm?
and Saturday at noon Eastern, 6 p.m. Swedish time. And if you noticed, we had a new intro song. We've been having
Yeah,
difficulties with our last one. Even though we both have licenses, they like to flag us. So
yeah.
we're working on it, but
Hmm?
it's
Yeah.
what we got right now. It's not bad. It's not a bad replacement, I don't think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, see, Vodka Blood loves
Yeah.
the new intro, so that's good.
Hmm? But it's the same video, but not the same tune, because we got
I had to,
copyright.
yeah, I had to slow it
Maybe.
down actually to the photo flashing through, so it's a little bit of
Hmm.
manipulated video, but really the same thing.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
and Jody says I am looking hot, and I cannot disagree with her.
Eh,
So, but thank you for
hmm?
that. Also, I want to give a shout out to Valhammer Media. Uh, he, she, it, I don't know. Valhammer's a guy, right? Yeah. He remastered all the audio of the Jodi Arias trial. I didn't know this until Waifu Kram sent it my way. And so we are now pulling from his streams. And he has a whole playlist, the entire Jody trial. He remastered the audio. It is really good. And I put a link to his playlist in the description. So on my channel, anyways. I don't know about Nick's, but
Hmm.
so if you want to, and you
I
should.
will. I haven't yet. I got home 14, 15 minutes ago. So, yep.
Yeah, but if you want to, and you should, I recommend you go over and give him a subscribe. He's got a bunch of playlists. I didn't. He's got all of Jody's interviews as well, and yeah, no
Hmm.
problem, man. You did a good job. He's got all of the interviews, which I may or
Hmm.
may not link into my Discord. We may or may not go over after we're done with the trial too, because her interviews, her interrogations are quite interesting. And he's got some other stuff.
Hmm.
I just focused on the Jody,
Hmm. Yeah.
but yeah, you guys should go check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
And
what we have today.
Ghostery. Yeah,
Well,
and Ghostery. No, we don't have to remove the sound from previous videos because uh, the copyright, whatever it's called, gets lifted after a few days after appeal. Because we both have license, but and I've told Artlist and everything that you really need to stop sending these crap things. I have had
yeah,
them
no, and it
all
worked
the
for a
time.
minute. What, are you glitching or am I?
Mm.
Someone was glitching. I don't know if it was
Am
you
I
or me.
glitching?
I'm still in Texas, so I'm on hotel internet. Hopefully
Yay.
it's not going to be a problem throughout the stream. But yeah, so we told everybody, and for a while, for a couple of weeks, it was fine again, and now we're getting
Mm.
copyright claimed. We're not getting struck. We're getting claimed, meaning they want part of our ad revenue, even though we have
Mm.
licenses, and I pay a monthly subscription to have those licenses. But
Yeah.
anyways, we got a new
So
song now. We're good to go.
yeah, yeah, and so whoever the author is of the first song that we have used, well, thanks to Artlist and whatever, now they will get nothing instead
Exactly, exactly.
because
You
we
did
have
it
the
to
license.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So
Miss Saturday's shenanigans, lots more sexy time. Yeah, and
oh.
it went into let's see here. She went to Walmart to buy a ring that one would place upon the peen, and then
Mm.
she found out that Walmart didn't sell such items. She got some outfits and
Yep.
yeah, all kinds of yeah, that kind of fun talk. Now we're going into the abuse. We ended Saturday's stream with her talking about the physical abuse she suffered at the hands of Travis. Whether you believe it or not is up to you.
Mm.
And I think we are, because the timing between Valhammer's streams and the ones that we were grabbing are just a little different. I think we're about where we left off. We're within a couple of minutes anyway. So we'll continue with day 17. We'll see what she has to say about the abuse that she alleged to have been suffered by Travis. And we'll go from there. And today's Tuesday. I was thinking this was a Saturday. Because I'm on vacation and days don't matter. And I thought we were doing a long stream, but we're only doing an hour. So now I need to change my my stream because we're not going to get to day 18. We're going to finish up day 17 today, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we will change the thumbnail afterwards.
Off topic, but I can't wait to see Eric Mulder being interviewed tomorrow per the Whitmer trial. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I am going to be in transit, and it's horrible. Like, all these good things are happening on days with the Whitmer case when I'm, like, in the middle of an airplane. Like the verdict and all this stuff. But that's okay. We'll get caught up.
Yeah. And I found out yesterday that the defense in the Delphi case have filed a 120-page, whatever it's called, where they are blaming an Odin cult.
Ooh, interesting.
So
I was wondering if they found a new murderer, or the actual murderer, I should say.
Yeah, and so that brings it into my wheelhouse, and so I guess I'm going to cover it. I know Mo has covered bits of it, so I've sent her, if maybe her and I can collaborate on it.
Yeah.
Because I need to be caught up with it. I know a tiny bit about it, but this was a surprise that apparently they are going to use my ancestors' faith as a defense, and in a defense. And
very interesting. And I guess that takes place all near where Mo lives, so that's interesting. She should do like a walk down the bridge and all that. She can do a tour of the alleged murder area. Hey, Ann, welcome. Welcome. You are late in Rainbow, but we haven't started with the stream yet. We're just, chit-chatting a bit, BSing while we're waiting for folks to get here.
Yeah. Mo won't be
she's streaming
here.
right now.
Not
actually.
Yeah, she's streaming right now.
Yeah.
And but I will try to have a talk with her about the Delphi case.
Yeah. So again, we'll start where we are. I don't imagine there's going to be a terrible amount of smexy talk since we're getting into the abuse part, but we'll see how many stories Jodi can tell, because I don't know. I find Travis to be manipulative and using women, particularly Jodi and all of her three holes. I don't find him to necessarily be abusive. At least Jodi claims to be the only one who has experienced such activities. But we'll see where this goes. And today is Tuesday, so it is our shorter day. So I got to change my headline. We're not going to get to day 18 rather.
And we were on the freeway, and we began to argue about, I was moving back to California, and it was something I had told him I was considering.
Yeah, that was fast.
Maybe a few days or a week prior, but I didn't really get into it. So I told him that I was for sure going to move, probably right after convention. And he made a few comments, and we argued, and the argument escalated, and then he reached his right hand over to hit me.
In the car while driving?
Yes.
You could find those in my Discord.
And you say hit you. What does that mean? Did he punch you? Did he slap you? Describe what happened.
I don't know if he just meant to smack me or what, but it was like a backhand.
Okay.
Hey, Jessica.
And so we're clear, prior to June 4th, was that the last time he was physically violent with you?
That wasn't the last, because the choking came after that.
Okay.
That was the last.
So prior to June 4th, have we discussed all the incidents of violence that you suffered before June 4th?
Well, yes, some I didn't think were violent, but
What do you mean, some you didn't think were very violent?
like he grabbed my wrist. I didn't think that was violent. It was a little forceful, but I didn't consider it violent or abusive. And after a few seconds of him demanding to know what we were talking about, I looked down at my wrist like, and he let it go.
Okay. But I want to make sure we're clear. Are there any other incidents where you didn't consider them abusive, where he was physically with you, restrained you, anything of that nature, hurt you physically in any way?
I didn't consider the incident when we were arguing in his bedroom to be abusive, or it was a little bit physical, but it didn't hurt, and I didn't consider it abusive. He pushed me, and I fell, but I landed right on my knees, so I didn't think that was a big deal.
Okay. My question is, are there any other incidents where he was physical with you that we haven't talked
Oh, I'm
about?
sorry. No, not that I can remember.
You tell Travis that you're going to move back to Wairika, or California, excuse me. And I'm assuming you're meaning back to Wairika, back to your grandparents' house where you wound up, right?
Yes.
Okay. After he backhands you in the car, what happens next?
I was crying pretty hysterically, and I called my mom from the car on my phone. And I asked her if she would please lend me some money so I could move back.
By the way, everyone, if you missed it earlier, this is Vielhammer Media's stream. He remastered all the audio, so the audio sounds awesome. And I just put a link to his channel in the chat. And there's a link in the description as well if you're coming at this on a rewatch. I highly recommend you guys all go check it out. Maybe give him a little subscribe or two.
Where were you living at the time?
She does have one. That's no
I was
joke.
still renting the same room in East Mesa.
Okay. And from what you just said, you didn't have the money to move back, right?
I was broke most of the time.
It's surprising to me that she left the stable guy, right?
Why were you broke?
Well, listening to she always traded up from a previous relationship, and
But she had a guy
of what
that
I've seen,
she was,
yeah.
I mean, they had a house together. They had a stable life. Was Travis trading up, do you think, in her mind?
But if I remember the chat in one of our previous streams, is that Travis had a thing where he elevated his own importance in this prepaid things.
That's true. He did make out that he had way more money than he actually had.
Yeah, and he already had a house, and maybe he wasn't upfront with having roommates.
He was also younger than
Yeah.
her last boyfriend, whatever his name is, Mark, I think. I can't remember.
I mean, I didn't have a big rent to pay. I wasn't able to afford my car payments anymore, so I wasn't paying my car anymore. I guess my money it seemed to just get used up. We were going on trips. I would lend Travis money. He typically paid me back. Sometimes
When
I didn't
you
have.
say you lent Travis money. Let's be clear. How much money did you lend Travis? I'm asking a total amount. We'll discuss the time.
All right, overall, to answer the question.
Total, if I did my math right, I lent him $1,299 total, $1,299 over
And
the
when
course
did
of our relationship.
Over the course of your relationship.
That's weirdly specific.
Yeah, she gets weirdly specific on a lot of weird things.
$12.99, and that's not a lot of money.
Did you lend him any money in 2008?
Yes,
Lend him any money in January 2008?
yes.
Oh, she's just prepared, I guess.
May I approach your Honor?
Mm.
What do you want to show you what's been marked?
She's counted every penny.
436. Can you take a look at these, please?
Wonder if her mother wants to do an interview. Oh, these are the checks.
12.
You recognize those?
Oh.
Yes.
69.
They're canceled checks that I wrote out to Travis.
And the first check, when was that written?
January 11th, 2008.
The second?
There's
January
nobody
15th,
trying to get
2008.
out of my cellar.
third?
Whatever
January 30th,
noise
2008.
you have, you hear?
How much was the first check
It's
for?
construction.
I was
$100.
gonna say, did Farrell make her way to Sweden?
No objection, she brings the paper in the family.
And we'll move it into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
436 is admitted.
Before we have it marked, Jody, how much was the first check for?
$100.
And what was why did you give Travis $100? Or why did you write him a check for $100?
I don't remember specifically what he needed it for, but it had to go in his bank account, his checking account.
And the second check,
$699.
and what was that for?
His checking account was
This is
going to be overdrawn or was already
2008.
overdrawn. I don't remember which.
Yeah,
And the third check?
2007, 2008.
$220.
Okay, and do you remember what?
We gave out on checks in the 90s
Oh, yeah, I know.
in
My
Sweden.
wife still refuses to have checks, but every once in a while she's like, can you write a check for this? I'm like, why don't you just go get checks? We Swedes, we don't do checks. Okay.
No, we don't.
What that was for?
I think it was to put toward his mortgage.
Okay.
That should have been a red flag for her if she thought she was trading up and all of a sudden he is
Asking her for
lovey,
money.
lovey, lovey, give me money. I mean,
Now these checks, Jody. You mentioned talking to him about, or needing to talk to him afterwards about his BMW. But this check number 3008, that didn't have anything to do with the purchase of his BMW?
No, he hadn't discussed selling it yet.
And likewise, check number 3009 to Travis for $699. That also had nothing to do with the BMW?
No.
Sal.
And the final check, 3012, for
Was financially
$220.
motivated.
That also didn't have anything to do with the BMW. Is that?
Maybe he asked her for the money. No, she gave him money. Never
They
mind.
were-
Maybe she asked
Yeah.
him for the money back, and then he went crazy.
Correct?
No, he wasn't selling it to me yet at that time.
He
So,
sold her his BMW.
if I'm doing
Yeah.
my math right,
I think she claimed she went
looks
there
like you
in her
gave Travis
interview.
over $900 in January 2008. Is that right?
About that, yes.
She admitted to finally going there to pay him
Do you
or
really
give him a
have
check
that
for the
kind
car.
of extra money to give?
Oh,
The land?
At times, the money was in my account, but it was generally allocated to my own bills.
This money that was generally allocated to your own bills, why did you give it to Travis? Or lend it to Travis?
He needed it.
Didn't you need it?
He promised he would pay it back before any other checks cleared my account or before I needed to make payments to for my own bills.
Did that always happen?
What?
Did he pay you back before you needed to pay your own bills?
Not always, but usually.
Did you have checks bounce because of this?
Yes, I had a lot of checks bounced that month. A lot of fees.
Did Travis pay those fees for you?
No, he screamed at me for incurring them.
Did he pay the $900-something back to you?
Eventually he did, yes.
Eventually meaning, do you know how much later? Months?
It
Weeks?
wasn't too much later. One payment was late to the point that I got a bunch of fees that hit my account, and it was an
Aw,
overdraft fees. And
Dave.
that was the only time it was late, I think, that I remember.
Did your bills go unpaid?
I don't remember if Washington Mutual covered the bill and just charged me a fee, expecting me to put money back in my account, or if there were payments that were returned to the people or companies or creditors or whoever I was paying.
Okay.
Yeah, quit giving him money. I feel like women do this a lot, though.
Now, we saw those checks
Yeah.
in January when you had no money
I can fix them. Kind of the Sal
to move back to Wairika.
mindset.
Yeah.
Did Travis owe you money then?
I don't recall. It was in early March, so I don't recall if I lent him money around that time or not.
Okay. But you lend him money on a consistent basis, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Jessica, do you feel like giving men money helps
So
fix
after
them?
you call
Tell
your
what?
mother and ask for money to move back to Wairika, what happens?
We turned around on one of the exits because I was crying and he was angry, and we decided it would be best to not attend the tax seminar. People there knew us, and he was probably just as interested as I was in not letting it be known that we had the kind of drama that we did in our relationship. So he turned the car around and drove me back to my house. The phone conversation with my mom had ended, and he pulled up to my house, and we had talked part of the rest of the way a little more calmly. He was apologizing, and he asked if I would come over to his house so we could make it better. And
What do you mean, make it better?
well, it wasn't really discussed, but the implication was make up sex or something to that effect. So I leaned in to give him a kiss on his cheek, and he turned and kissed me on the lips, which I felt was very affectionate because by this point in our relationship, he wasn't really kissing me on the lips at all. And then he walked me to my door, and he told me that he loved me. And so I changed out of the business clothes that I was wearing into just more casual clothes, and I cleaned myself up a little bit because I had been crying. And then I swung by Starbucks to get him a cookies and cream frappuccino, and I think I got a strawberry. And then I drove to his house, and we hung out.
Hey, morning, Dave.
So he hits you in the face. Then if I heard you right, in the car later when he's at the home, he tells you he loves you, right? Did I hear that right?
Yes. I'm
And
sorry, he didn't hit me in the face.
you said he slapped you in the car.
He
Or
did.
your driving.
He
Yeah.
did.
Nice.
But it
Argue with
wasn't
your
me.
own
Okay,
attorney.
where was it?
I don't know, he might have been aiming for my face because it was just to the side, but I turned my head and it was kind of more like my jaw and like this area, my neck sort of in my jaw.
Okay.
We kind of argued about that too.
Nick, do you know what a corner kiss
So
is?
after dodging a slap to the face,
Nick, do you know what a corner kiss is?
Well, I'm guessing it's a corner of the lips.
I have a phone ringing. I don't even know where it is. Yeah, it's like the corner of the lips. I didn't know what that was. Apparently, Swedes do, but I had no idea.
We
and
what?
I asked my wife for a corner kiss, and she immediately knew exactly what it was. I had never heard of it before, so I'm assuming Swedes all know what this is. I don't know.
Okay.
It's from a trial that Baker's covering. The lesbian basement pink case.
he tells you he loves you and wants make-up sex, not so many words. And then you go over to his house with items from Starbucks. Is that accurate?
Yes, 2 frappuccinos.
Okay, 2 frappuccinos. And you've already decided you want to move back home, right?
Yes.
Why did you decide at this point in time, before we go into what happened afterwards, why do you pick up the phone to call your mother to move back to Wairika? Why do you want to move back to Wairika?
So we're in the beginning of March, and I decided actually during Christmas that I wanted to move back there because I was there with my family. I was broke, so my mom paid for me to fly back for Christmas. I flew into Sacramento. My dad picked me up, and I'm sorry.
No, she's describing one.
Ask another question.
What was the motivation or the sudden urgency for you to pick up the phone in March and say, Mom, I want to move back home?
Because it was miserable in the car, and my mom and I don't have a very great relationship, but it just sounded, I knew she would help me if I needed help.
Why did you want to get out of Mesa so quickly?
I didn't have a way to get out, and I wanted to, it was miserable. I wanted to leave, but it wasn't
What
right
was
away.
miserable, Jodi? What was miserable?
My relationship, my circumstances, how things were going.
Your relationship with Travis.
Yes.
The circumstances being how he treated you?
Yes, the roller coaster we were always on.
What do you mean by roller coaster?
The ups and downs. the ups were great and the downs were horrible, and it was a point where it was a horrible point, and so that's why I picked up the phone and called her.
So you had considered it earlier for personal reasons, but that day in the car, you realized you wanted to get away from Travis. Is that right? It wasn't healthy for you to be with him.
Checking on that question, for the lawyer to answer.
Oh, well, give me an answer.
Yes, both.
Yeah, apparently, I didn't even know I had a
So-
phone in this hotel room.
What happens after you speak with your mother?
You mean while we're speaking or after we hung up?
Well,
That
after
was
you hung
exactly
up,
what
you
I was
decide you're
thinking,
going to move
Malcolm.
back to Wairika.
Yes. Well, I'd already decided,
Okay.
but we had discussed it openly at this point. That's how the fight escalated.
Okay. It was my fault. Were plans in the works after you talked to your mom to secure the funds to have you move back to Wairika?
Yes, I asked her to come help me move.
Okay. What's that?
I asked her to come help me move.
Okay. Moving back to these circumstances and what happened in the car, why then do you return to Travis's house with the two Frappuccinos? Because you just told us you realize you want to get away from this man. Why are you at his house with two Frappuccinos?
Why are we still talking about Frappuccinos?
Because it's complicated. I still loved him.
Because you
He
Americans
was
don't like
a lot
coffee.
more, he had calmed down. He was very tender and gentle by the time we reached my house, and the way we parted was very sentimental. And
hell
that's
does
why
that
he invited
mean?
me over, and I could foresee that it would be a pleasant time that we could spend together. And I wanted that since we had just had such an unpleasant incident.
Did you still love him at this point in time,
Yes, I loved him.
even though he hit you?
Yes.
Okay. So you have the two Frappuccinos, you're in Mr. Alexander's house. What happens? Do you have sex?
We did have sex that day.
Exactly. Was it normal sex?
Do you advise him
Did you
that you're
use
still
the
going to move
ring?
away?
We didn't talk about it.
Was it a mega pint of Frappuccino? I mean,
How long did you stay at Mr. Alexander's house that day?
We spent almost the rest of the afternoon and early evening together.
It sounds like breakup sex.
yeah.
When did you finally tell him that you were going to move back?
In the car. Well, we had discussed
Hey,
it a few
Solomon.
days earlier, or maybe a week. I can't remember. It was sometime in late February. And I discussed with him that I was going to, but it just was indefinite. Like I didn't know when exactly, but it was somewhere on the horizon. And then in the car, it was more definite.
Okay. And I should have been more clear in my question. Was there continued discussion between you and Mr. Alexander as to whether or not you should stay in Mesa?
In the car, there was. And there were a few
She's
times he
already
joked
asked.
about it. And,
Yeah, I'm in
In a nice
Texas
way.
right now, Solomon.
In a nice way?
yes.
In these, what you're characterizing as jokes, did he want you to stay?
Yes.
About how long was it before the day where he hit you in the car until the day you actually moved back to Wairika?
Well, can we just give a timeline here real quick? She meets him. Less than a month later, she's getting baptized. Then she gets raped from the behind on the day of the baptism. She sticks with him. He's taking a bunch of money from her. He continuously abuses her. He makes her do demeaning things like wearing boy shorts and go shopping for rings at Walmart and other toys. She apparently is hit by him several times. She still engages in activities with him. And there's talking about her continuing to live in Mesa, or at least move back at some point in the future when she has more money. That's where we're at right now, right? So does this sound like, I don't know. I just feel like, why would you stick with him? But maybe I'm looking at it from the wrong perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot happening in the absolute beginning of the relationship that simply doesn't make sense. Even even without any alleged abuse, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. Now, take the physical abuse out of it. I could see where she's being manipulated by him and he's using her. At least even his friends kind of support that position, but not physical. I don't get the physical stuff. Salvador, if this is the baptism process, I don't want to be Mormon anymore. Oh, Salvador.
Approximately a month and a week.
And so in this, we'll call it about a 5-week period. Are you still seeing Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Is it business as usual, so to speak? You're still coming to his house late at night for sexual rendezvous?
Yes.
I have to ask again, why? You decided you want to get away
Yes,
from this
why?
man. You're
I
making
wanna
plans
know.
to get away from this man. Why are you still acting as his booty call?
He called it.
I was making a string of bad choices during that time in my life.
The Provo push is Salvador's limit. That's right.
You spoke about that you were still living in this home in East Mesa. Did you live there the entire time before you moved to?
This
back to Puerto Rico?
relationship is like
The majority of the time.
6 months old at this time too, by the way. I just want to put that. It's not like they were together for years. This is 6 months old.
And I moved in with Rachel first, and then she eloped with her boyfriend slash fiance.
Okay. Did you stay with Travis before you moved back?
Oh yeah, I did. The last 4 days, or maybe it was somewhere between a week or almost that. Not quite.
Did he have roommates at that time?
Yes,
Did the roommates know you were staying there?
I think they did. I
Malcolm,
parked right in the driveway.
Malcolm, Salvador needs a favor from you.
Where were you sleeping?
In his bed.
Okay. Do you remember the actual day you moved?
I remember the actual. Well, there was a couple. There was one time I pulled out of town. Well, not out of town, but onto the freeway, and then I ended up coming back to his house and staying another night, maybe 2 nights, and then the last time I rolled out of town, finally, I did. I remember that day.
Okay. Well, as it relates to the day that you started driving out of town and drove back to Travis's house, why did you wind up driving back to Travis's house?
I had been staying with him, and then I went and hooked up my car to a U-Haul. I was taking my car. So then I had it parked. There's like you go 3 or 4 houses down, or 2 or 3 more houses down, and then you make I'm talking like facing east, and then you turn north. There's this stretch of pavement and street where there are no houses, just the cinder block walls for backyards. And you can complete the whole block, but in that stretch, I parked the U-Haul there because it was too big at that point to park in front of the house. And as I was getting ready to leave, he made a joke kind of saying, if you get tired, you can always turn around and come back and stay in my bed again. Or it wasn't stay in my bed, but that was the implication. And so I got on the road and I got to, I think, Sossaman, I think is the name of the street. It was late when I got on the road. I wanted to get going, but when I get tired at the wheel, I'm almost narcoleptic. So I pulled over to sleep in the seat of the U-Haul. I texted Travis and told him that. He sounded a little bit irritated. So we began, I don't know if I talked to him or called him or texted him back, but I ended up coming back to his house anyway. And I stayed there 2 more days.
Okay. Why 2 more days?
I feel like these are hard questions for her to ask from her own attorney. This is so bad.
Yeah.
This is bad direct of this witness. It's
Yeah.
lingering on things that are not relevant, and he's not asking them in a compelling way. She's not answering them in a compelling way, and she seems to be stumped. There's definitely no love lost between this attorney and this defendant.
No, absolutely not. It's almost as if she's surprised by the questions.
Yeah, which is not good. You can be surprised by the phrasing of a question, but not the question itself. You shouldn't be surprised.
I'm
It's
trying to
not
remember
that-
if there was,
Sorry.
It's that question. What am I supposed to answer here?
Yeah, or, like sometimes I might prepare my client and ask the question a little differently when we're in trial because of how I'm reading everything or whatever, how it comes out, and you need some clarification. But that was a question that was clearly, I mean, she should know the answer to that, and she's struggling, which is weird. Unless it's just all of her lies on top of lies.
I don't know. I know there was a prepaid legal event on the Tuesday that I ended up staying and going to.
But why would he want to put his own client off balance?
You mentioned the U-Haul having your car on the back of it. What was your car at that time?
2004 Infiniti G35 Coupe.
We also heard from the testimony earlier in this case about the U-Haul and the BMW, and the BMW not surviving its experience on the U-Haul. And earlier you also said he pawned off his BMW on you. What do you mean by that? What was going on with the BMW at that point in time?
What I mean by that was around January, I knew that I needed to give my car back to Infinity Financial, which was the lender, and I couldn't afford the payments anymore. And because I had gone from excellent credit down to having a foreclosure, and now soon a repo, and all my credit cards were shot, my credit was shot. So Travis was in the process of looking for a Toyota Prius, and he wanted to unload his BMW, but he said he could get more by selling it private party than trading it in. So he didn't want to go through the process of selling it to somebody and worrying about collecting payment and that sort of thing. And so I was going to, there was a guy at my news cafe that I worked with that wanted to buy it, and he offered him all cash for $4,500.
Oh my God, so much detail.
Not nearly enough. He wanted to sell it for, I think it was $6,000. So he proposed that I buy it because I had to give my car back. He said, your credit's horrible right now. No one is going to lend you a dime. Why don't you drive it? And you can pay me. And he gave me very easy terms to pay him. And I had seen that car break down on him at least 3 times in the time I'd known him. So I was a little bit leery of getting that car. It didn't have a warranty. And one of the reasons I bought the Infiniti
Oh my God,
was
I don't
didn't have
care.
to worry about my car breaking down.
Jesus Christ! what's
So I was
going on?
reluctant, but his idea at the time made sense to me because I did have to get my car back. So I agreed to do that. And I drove that car out to the U-Haul Center, which was in Apache Junction. And I bought a tow dolly that has the back wheels on the pavement and the front hiked up, and it was attached to my U-Haul truck. And when I drove there, they had the dolly hooked up and instructed me to drive up onto the dolly. So I did that, and I shut off the car, and the U-Haul guy checked it out for me. He
Full stop.
took the keys out of the ignition from me and everything,
Full
and then he
stop.
shut it. And I asked him if
She
he locked
memorized
it. He
this.
locked it. And then I took off on the road. It was somewhat near the freeway, and as I was hitting the freeway, I tried to speed up, but it seemed like there was a lot of drag on the vehicle, and it wouldn't really go, even though it was flooring it. And there were some cars driving by honking, and I didn't know if they were honking at me, but as that continued, I wondered what was going on, and I looked out the side view mirrors, and I didn't see anything different or strange, but more vehicles continued to do that, and they were passing me because I wasn't going fast enough. I was trying to go faster, but it wouldn't speed up. And then I looked again in the side view mirrors, and I noticed a ton of white smoke coming out the back on both sides of the U-Haul truck from behind it. And so I knew that wasn't a good sign. So I pulled off the exit, the next exit that I came up on. I think I was still in Apache Junction. And I didn't want to take it any further because it looked like it was bad. So I pulled off the exit on the exit ramp, on the shoulder of the exit ramp, and I got out to see what was going on with the car.
And ultimately,
Oh my God. Oh my God. What? Why did you
just
buy
happened?
his vehicle? Why did he sell you his vehicle? I think was the question. I can't even remember the freaking
Yeah.
question. I needed a car. He had a car to sell. It wasn't working the best, I guess, if that's relevant. But I needed a car. He had a car to sell. It was a good deal. I bought it. My God.
what did you learn happened to the car? Did it suffer any damage?
Yes, the car was left in first gear, and I towed it that way, and it was either the engine or the transmission blew up, and there was black oil all over this white pavement, which was the exit ramp, and it was just going everywhere.
Okay.
And there were pieces of metal
I forgot what the question
on the
was.
pavement.
I mean, it was that bad.
And was this on the day that you were, the day that you left and came back, or was this on the day that you ultimately left for good?
Neither. That was right before. It was like in the same week period, but it was neither of those days.
Okay. Was it before those days then?
Yes.
Okay.
She just said right before. He's not even listening to his own
So,
client's answers.
was this BMW, was his or yours that you were in the midst of purchasing?
Although I don't blame him.
Was it drivable? Was it functional?
No, it was completely ruined. At least the mechanics of it were.
Yes, this is in front of a jury.
Did you fear
Is
telling
this
Travis
to
what
bore the-
happened?
Oh, is this to bore the
Yes.
jury?
Was very, very worried
Don't
about that.
know what this is for.
What were you worried that he would do?
Well, he had been, we were like in, I guess you could call it like this period where he was being very sweet, very kind, very loving. I was staying at his house for a couple of nights. I was out of my house and
Oh, maybe it's explaining, but it's still just like the worst way to explain why she was still staying at his house. It wasn't just for the SEX. It's because she blew up the car trying to tow it home.
I was afraid of ruining that and pissing him off and having him explode again. And this time I knew it was completely my fault, or maybe U-Haul's fault. We didn't really determine. But
How was it U-Haul's fault you
basically,
left
I
it in
was
gear?
the reason his engine blew up. And he had just told me 2 days earlier I was loading up the truck and my houseplants were at his house for the entire time that I lived there, because my house, the one I was renting, didn't have a lot of counter space. His did. So my houseplants lived at his house while I was there in Mesa. And so I collected those, put them in the front seat in a box with a seatbelt around it, so if I hit the brakes, they wouldn't go flying. And I left them in the car one night, and this is April. I went to Travis's house, slept in, didn't get back. He drove me back to my house where the U-Haul truck was parked on that day. And I opened the front door and saw they were all wilted brown. I was really bummed because I'd had them for years since I owned my house. in
Oh,
Palm
she
Desert.
got mad and threw a fit.
And they were important to me. And so they were all turned brown. And
Kill my plants!
Travis got really pissed off at that. He liked my plants too and was upset that I was taking them back. And then he told me everything I touch turns to shit. So then 2 days later, or a day or 3, I don't remember how many days, but it was the same week after this point, I blew up the engine in his car. So I thought he was really going to lose it then.
What do you mean by lose it? Become physically violent with you?
Wait, I want to go back to everything you touch goes to shit, Jody. Is that a fair statement? I feel like it's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Actually, we might get into 18.
Maybe that, or just his general wrath. That was usually worse anyway.
What's that?
Either way, like, I feared him screaming and yelling at me, because to me, that felt worse.
That's what-
And tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock tomorrow, please remember the admonition. You are excused.
All right. By the way, if you like the quality of that recording, check out is it Vielhammer? Am I pronouncing it correctly or not? I don't know.
Yeah, Vielhammer.
Yeah. So we're using Vielhammer. Link is in the what do I want to say? A link is in the description, but it's also, I think, in the chat somewhere floating around too.
Yep.
So
I
we're
just
gonna go.
posted it on my chat, and it's in the description of the video. Of the stream.
Okay, so this is day 18, right?
What
wanna keep
a
going?
bunch of bullcrap she spewed out.
That was just nonsense after nonsense. I don't know what that was. I don't know. I don't know what that was. Yeah, it was just incoherent. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. You all rented her the dolly. Made sure she knew how to use it, and then I'll put it in the car. I don't think so. Put it in neutral is probably, I guarantee, is something that they said. I
Yeah.
guarantee that. You missed the chipmunk voice? That's when I was on Swedish internet. Now I'm on good old American internet. We don't get the chipmunk voice. But I believe, yeah, she was oblivious to it. I believe she got angry. I believe she blamed everybody for that. She blamed Travis for the dead plants. She's the one that got angry in that situation. I guarantee it. Yeah. Do we want to go into day 18? We're 45 minutes in. We're a little short. We can start day 18, or we can call it good for today. What do you want to do?
That depends on how we are at likes.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Yes. Don't forget to give me a like. And, you know, you can hit Nick's like button twice because he needs the extra likes. We're at 31 for you and 32 for me. Woohoo! Let me just pull this up. I don't know if we're going to do it. I'm just, yeah, so this is day 18. There's a weird little, is there like an interlude here for day 18? Jodi on the stand, but there's someone else on the stand for a minute for day 18. Yeah,
Okay.
see, we're going to go into day 18.
Maybe
I
it's
think we should keep
they
going.
are vetting an expert or something.
I don't know. This is weird. So they come back at 11. Ew, we're gonna see the little intro here. This is really good quality audio, so I don't mind promoting it as long as
Are
he's
the
cool.
defendant and all counsel, the jury is not.
Don't copyright claim me, okay? I'm promoting you.
Yep.
Present. We are continuing a hearing we started back in January.
Oh,
Mr. Nerney, Ms. Wilmot.
so this is outside the jury.
Ms.
What's
Hughes,
this
please
here?
come forward to be sworn.
Can you spell your first and last name for
Gonna
me?
do. Oh, that's probably why they had the jury come back at like 11:30, because they have this
Okay.
hearing to take care of in the morning.
This can be interesting.
Yes. Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
Who is this woman? Does she want to do an interview?
A brown-haired girl that's more beautiful than me. Jodi's getting mad.
Good morning, Ms. Hughes. Can you tell us your full name, please?
Skylee Hughes.
And Ms. Hughes, are you married to Chris Hughes?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been married?
10 years.
10 years.
Wait, who's Chris Hughes?
Do you know Travis? Did you know Travis Alexander?
Yes, I did.
How did you know Travis?
We were good friends.
How did you meet him?
I met him at church.
And were you already married to Mr. Hughes at that point?
Sorry. No, I was not.
Okay. So you met him when you were still single?
Yes.
And about when was that?
In about 2001?
All right. And so had you known him continuously since then?
Yes.
Eventually, when you and Mr. Hughes got married, I take it you both were friends with him. Is that right?
Yes.
And did he come over to your house a lot?
Yes.
Did he spend a lot of time with you and Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
And eventually, you and Mr. Hughes have a son?
Yes.
And did he spend time with your son?
Yes.
Did he ever sleep over?
Yes.
Would he spend the weekends at your house?
Yes.
They
And
had
would he go to
sleepovers?
church with you all together?
Yes.
All this time that you spent with him, I imagine you got very close to him,
Yes.
and you cared about him,
Very much.
and you loved him very much as well.
Yes.
In the last 4 years, since 2008, you've been interested in what's been going on in this case, right?
Yes.
And because of the care and so much how much you cared for Travis, I would imagine you care about what happens in this case, right?
Absolutely.
Because ultimately you would be hoping that Ms. Arias is convicted.
Yes.
And in the last 4 years, your interest has included contact with the prosecutor's office, right?
Yes.
And you've spoken with the victim witness advocate?
No.
Who have you spoken with?
I've spoken to Philip and Mr. Martinez.
Okay. Was there somebody else that you were going to say?
No.
Oh,
Okay. So Philip, and just to be clear,
yes, please. Give us the name of the song so we can get it. I didn't even think about that. Thank you. So we don't get claimed for that.
that's Mr. Martinez's paralegal, right?
I believe so.
All right. And
This is Miss Hughes. She is married to Chris Hughes. I can't remember. Chris Hughes came up, but I can't remember what his situation is. But essentially, they're friends with Travis. This is the continuation of a hearing that they started apparently pre-trial. And this is outside the jury's presence. So Jodi's sitting off to the side for a minute. She's still on the stand, but they're continuing a hearing. We're not sure what it's about, though, because this is the first we're hearing of it.
you've spoken to Mr. Martinez himself,
Yes.
and this is over the last 4 years.
Yes.
And you have been watching the trial since it started, right?
Yes.
And you've been watching it, I guess, because it's being live streamed?
Yes.
And when you're watching the trial, your contact with the county attorney's office is continuing, right?
Yes.
And when you're watching the trial, you're watching to see if there is any inconsistencies or things that might be helpful to the prosecution.
I watch to see if there's things that I remember or that are, inconsistent. Yes.
Okay, so in other words, if there's something that's helpful to the prosecution, you would have contact with the prosecution to let them know that.
If there's something that's helpful for Travis and his case, then I will let, the prosecution know.
Okay, and if it's helpful for Travis in his case, it would be helpful for the prosecution, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so your contact with Philip and Mr. Martinez has continued throughout this trial, right?
Yes, much less than in the beginning, but yes.
All right. And on January 15th, you received a call from the county attorney's office?
I don't know what date it was, but
The call about Gus Searcy.
I don't know the date, but I did get a call about Gus.
Okay. And who did you speak to about that?
Philip.
All right. And what did Philip tell you?
He asked me if I knew Gus Searcy. I said yes. And he says, how do you know him? And I said, he works with Chris in Legal Shield.
Okay.
It's amazing how a competent witness can answer questions, right?
Yeah, but this is kind of new. So the prosecution is using the witness to spot inconsistencies in Jodi's testimony and the trial and stuff like that. But she's kind of biased.
Well, she's
how could you-
biased, but she's also been listening in. She's not an expert, right? So only
Yeah.
expert witnesses are allowed to listen in on the testimony to
Yeah.
help form their expert opinion.
Yeah.
You can't have an impeachment witness listening in on the testimony.
Yeah.
Prosecutorial misconduct hearing.
Oh.
Oh, okay. We're going to go over a Court of Appeals decision, which apparently talks about a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, and we were wondering when that's coming in, because we didn't see a lot. We saw some. This is interesting.
Yeah, because this is in Sweden. This would never have been allowed. I mean, just the. Can you please listen in, because she's almost a part. She could be a witness in the trial for Travis, since she knew everybody involved. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they intend to call her as a witness, and that's the issue. Because if I just have some layperson sitting and watching a trial and taking notes and pointing out inconsistencies, there's nothing wrong with that. But
if
this
she is on
person
the witness list,
that's the problem.
yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
And do you remember, I know you don't know the date, but do you remember the time approximately of when you got the call?
I don't. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Do you have any memory of whether it was morning or late night?
It wasn't late night.
Okay.
It was probably morning.
More morning
sometime.
time?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you communicate your conversation then to your husband?
Yes. I had to ask him for a phone number, so yes.
I'm sorry, you asked?
I asked Chris for Gus's phone number.
Oh, why did you do that?
This is not voir dire. This is a hearing on something, but we're not sure exactly what the motion is. But apparently this witness may or may not be someone kind of working as an investigator for the prosecutor, but somehow this is prosecutorial misconduct. So this is a layperson. This is not like a team from the prosecutor's office or a police officer. Or anything.
But she is friends. Well, what did you say? What did she say in the beginning?
She's married to Chris, who is friends with Travis and was friends at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
To give to Philip.
And because Philip wanted to have Mr. Searcy's number?
I just said I might have his number. Let me get it.
Oh, okay. And so did you ultimately give it to Philip?
Yes.
And when you were talking to your husband about it, what is it that you told him?
I said I need Gus's number. He says, why? I said, Philip needs it.
Okay. And did Philip tell you why he was asking about Mr. Searcy?
He said that the defense was going to be calling him.
Okay. And so, and what, any other part of your conversation with your husband then about this?
No,
So did you tell
Yes, they
you, so
also
you
had
told Mr.
sleepovers.
Huser, your husband, that the prosecution was wondering why Mr. Searcy was being called?
no, he wasn't wondering why. He just asked for his number.
Because he was being called as
Yeah.
a witness? Okay. And that, but that part you communicated to Mr. Hughes, your husband?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay. And
So they're all talking behind the scenes about who's being called and what they're going to testify to and all this stuff.
were you present when Mr. Hughes, when your husband texted Gus Searcy?
No,
And were you present at all during the conversation that your husband had with Mr. Searcy?
no.
I don't believe her.
And did you talk to the county attorney's office again that day?
I don't think I did.
Okay. Did you call Philip back or Mr. Martinez back to discuss what the conversation that your husband had with Mr. Searcy was?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so did you never advise Philip that Mr. Searcy had a phone call, that Mr. Hughes had a
Oh,
phone
no,
call?
I said Chris talked to Gus.
Oh, okay. Do you have a memory as to when that was?
I have no idea who Gus is.
Maybe the next day or the day after that.
Okay.
I was talking about something else,
To whom?
to Philip.
Oh, okay. You were talking about something else to Philip when you, and then you also told him about the conversation with Mr. Searcy?
Yeah, I said Chris talked to Gus.
Okay.
No, it's a hotness contest, definitely.
See, Gus
And-
Searcy is a prepaid legal executive director who took the stand for,
Oh, that guy with the gold rings.
and it's something about, I see there's an interview out there where Gus Searcy says, here's what I couldn't say on the stand. So he was very limited in his testimony.
So, what's interesting is they're all talking about who's going to testify and what they're going to say and all this stuff.
No, but he wasn't tested. He hasn't taken the stand yet, or has he? I'm just checking.
He did. He
out
was the one
here.
with the gold rings, right? He was the only, because that would have been the state's case in chief, and he was the prepaid legal guy with the gold rings that looked like a used car salesman. He was talking
Yeah,
about how
okay,
great
yeah, it
and how
is.
this isn't a pyramid scheme. Remember, he was arguing about with the prosecutor, like, no, it's not a pyramid scheme. That guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you summarize the conversation for
The
Philip
motorhome
about
guy.
what your husband talked to?
Oh
Mr.
yeah, the guy that lives in the motorhome. He's such a
Yeah.
success with his flashy suits and rings, but he lives in a motorhome. Yeah, that guy.
Searcy about?
No. I mean, I just said that he talked to him. He said, why? And I said he just talked to him about that they were going to be meeting together later at the.
It might be odd. I think it's more of a nervous kind of thing because she's under the gun for being sort of passing. It sounds like passing testimony back and forth. So
Chris was doing an event, a seminar, and Gus was going to be there.
Okay.
And then I asked him if it'd be okay if Gus and Chris saw each other, like if that was going to be a problem.
Okay. And what did Philip tell you?
He
Gus
said no, it shouldn't be a
testified
problem.
day 10.
Okay.
And I'm sure he knows because he watched these videos a lot to re-edit this
And
audio.
did Chris share with you the fact that he told Mr. Searcy that he thought the defense was lying or like a snake?
I don't remember if he told me that or not. He just told me that Gus said that he had information that could hurt Jodi or help Jodi.
Okay. And anything else did he tell you about their conversation?
Not that I remember. That's basically what I remember from their conversation.
Okay. And then after you spoke with after you knew that your husband had spoken with Mr. Searcy, then it was a day or so later that you spoke to Philip and advised him of that?
Yeah. That's not why I called him. I called him about something else, and I just asked when I was on the phone if it would be okay because they were going to be at a seminar together.
Okay. Why did you call him?
Because I had remembered something, then I just thought he should know.
What did you remember?
Jodi had told a friend of ours that she got baptized for Travis.
And so you were
Just
helping
letting
them.
Philip know that.
Okay. And did the prosecution ever advise you or your husband, at least to your knowledge about your husband, that you were listed as defense witnesses?
No.
They never told you that?
No. Well, I asked him if he was going to be using me.
That's an issue.
That's a
That's
serious
why.
issue.
That's why it's a problem, because she was listed as a defense witness, yet the state is using her to poke out inconsistencies, having her watch the trial and things like that. That's why we have the misconduct issues.
Yeah. The prosecution only can vet her, so to speak, but they can't ask favors of her.
Yes.
That's
To testify. He said he didn't think he would be. And I said, what about the defense? He says, I don't know if the defense is using you or not.
And when you say he, are you talking about Mr. Martinez specifically?
Yes. We hadn't received a subpoena or anything.
Okay. But he didn't tell you specifically that you were listed or not listed. He just said he didn't know?
No, he didn't say he didn't know. He just said he didn't know. I didn't ask him if we were listed. I asked him if we were going to testify or not. And he said, I don't know if you're going to testify or not for them.
Okay. Right. So he said that he didn't know if we had called you, we're going to be calling you to testify.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
And that kind of
And so I
ruins-
take it also you were never advised then.
What's that?
That kind of ruins her as a defense witness.
It does. It does. Now they
Yeah.
can't call her. Well, I mean, if they do call her, her testimony is going to be all over the place, and it's probably not going to be usable for the defense.
Yeah.
Not to watch anything on the media?
No.
That
Right.
would have been a
And
mistrial
you have been
moment,
continually
wouldn't it?
watching this.
Sorry, what was that?
That would have been a mistrial moment. I mean,
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to ask for a mistrial. Well, according to
Yeah.
Vielhammer, this goes on for several days. So I don't know when they get to the end of this hearing and when they ask for a mistrial because of it. I guess it would be, what is this witness actually going to say in favor of the defense, too? That I don't know.
yeah.
This case since it started in trial, right?
Yes.
All right. That's all, Your Honor.
Ma'am, the prosecutor never advised you to tell your husband to talk to Mr. Searcy, correct?
Correct.
And the prosecution never told you to contact any witness to attempt to influence them in any way, correct?
Correct.
And if there were any calls that were made at that juncture, they were mostly between you and Philip, correct?
Yes.
And with regard to the issue involving Gus Searcy, he called you and asked you about Gus Searcy, and you provided a telephone number, right?
Right.
At no time did Philip ever indicate that Mr. Hughes was to talk to Mr. Searcy, correct?
Correct.
And then later on, a couple of days later, you called for a different reason, and at that point, you asked Philip whether or not it was okay if Mr. Searcy and Mr. Hughes saw each other at a seminar that they were both attending.
Yes.
I don't know.
Redirect.
Ms. Hughes, the prosecutor or the prosecutor's office knew that you were watching the trial, right?
I don't know what they knew.
Well, I mean, you were reporting to them throughout the trial. You've been reporting what you've seen and anything that can help, right?
Objection is characterization that she's reported. I think that there's 2 instances that have been talked about, but no reporting.
Restate your question.
Well, Judge,
I just want to clarify this statement here. So Jodi comes back on day 18, which is what we're currently watching now. Hearing is split up across multiple days. It's weird. It's not weird when you're in the middle of a jury trial. So judges don't like to keep juries waiting. They don't like to keep, they don't want to take an entire day or a day and a half away from the jury and just leave them at home. They want to keep the evidence coming in. So if they can take an hour or two each day to address a motion or a thing, they will do that. So that way the jury's not just sitting and waiting for days to get back into trial. So it's very common that this would happen if a motion is brought up that needs evidentiary testimony in the middle of a jury trial.
Yeah, and for Ghost Reef, for those of us who have no idea what's happening, why is whatever considered misconduct? Well, she is listed as a defense witness. She is not supposed to be watching the trial at all, but somehow she from somewhere she got the impression that she should and talk to the prosecution.
Yeah, and tell
Which
them
is-
about, oh, Jody's saying this, that's not true, here's whatever.
And this is Sears' testimony. This is not correct. Because if the prosecution can vet and interview potential witnesses, but not to this extent during trial with a
Right.
person who is going to be, or at least is on the witness stand. And her being subpoenaed doesn't really matter. If she is on the witness list, she's been told about it.
Yeah, that's part of the problem here. Probably a dumb question. Is the jury? No, the jury was asked to come back at 11:30. Presumably,
Yeah.
they're conducting this first thing in the morning before the jury gets to
Yeah.
court.
Yeah, and whatever the defense wanted out of her is now useless. Because now she knows everything that has been said in the trial up to this point. So she cannot have an independent recollection. And that independent recollection whatever it was the defense wanted her for is gone now. And that is the prosecution's misconduct. Because the moment she called them and said, "Hey, I'm watching the trial," prosecution, I'm calling the defense.
No, that's... Yeah, well, and first you give them an instruction. Don't watch the trial. Oh my God, don't watch the trial. And, and then you call the defense. Well, I don't know if he might have told the defense, and that's why the defense even knows about it and is bringing this motion.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We'll keep going here. We're a little over an hour. We'll see where this wraps up. Well, obviously, we're not going to get through day 18 today. By the way, if you are new here, Tuesdays and Saturdays, we stream, Nick and I, dual stream Jodi Arias. Tuesdays are usually our shorter days. So usually don't go beyond an hour. But there's not a trial that I'm handling right now, so we can go a little bit longer. I don't know about you, Nick, what you got going on. But you'll all be redirected, I think, to Baker, if Baker's still going.
I have to,
You've had contact with the prosecutor's office throughout the trial, right? That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, here and there. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're contacting the prosecution, you're talking about what you've seen. Some of the times you're talking about what you've seen, right?
You make it sound like I was like watching and then calling real fast. Like it wasn't like that. Like sometimes people would text me, "Hey, what about this? Is this important?" And if people would send me an email.
Wait, who are these people that are texting you saying, "Hey, what about this? Is this important?" Is this the prosecutor's office, ma'am? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Or I would see like when the t-shirt thing came up, then I called and told them something that I remembered that might have to do with that.
Okay, so with the t-shirt thing, obviously, it would be obvious then that you were watching the trial if you're talking to them about the t-shirt.
Well, I actually didn't see that part in the trial. I received a text from Taylor Searle, and he said if Travis had a t-shirt made, he would have gone through me. We had a t-shirt business together. I never made that t-shirt. And I said, "What t-shirt?" And he told me.
Okay, so the specific t-shirt example
So
wasn't because
witnesses
you were
talking
watching
to
trial.
each other too?
Okay, you
during
said
the
that you would
trial?
receive text
Jesus
messages
Christ.
and emails?
Yeah.
From whom?
Well, not me specifically. Somebody had sent a message to Chris on Facebook.
Yeah,
And
there's
I don't
no
know.
need to be
They're not like a friend of his.
to
It's
do
some
all this
random person.
shenanigans with this case.
Okay, so you would receive those and do what with it?
I just called and said, "Hey, this person said this," and he said, "Okay, thank you."
Okay, you would call who? Philip?
I called Philip. I think.
Okay, so any helpful information you would call the prosecutor's office? Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. And when you got the call from Philip about Gus Searcy, he never advised you not to have any contact with Mr. Searcy, right?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, Ms. Stepdown. Any other witnesses?
This witness is feral 15 years ago.
Judge, we do have Mr. Searcy is present. As I explained yesterday, we had no intent on calling him as a witness, but the state has advised us this morning that they were not interested in Mr. Searcy's further testimony. I know seemingly the court may have had questions for him as well related to the phone number. I don't know if those questions persist or not. He is here today. I'll bring him in. The court also ordered that he be restricted from doing interviews at this point in time, and he is asking that restriction be released. So we'd like to make record of that this morning, that no party has any more interest in him, and release from his subpoena and restrictions.
Any objection?
No objection. I would note that the conversation that we had on the record yesterday was involving Mr. Searcy was whether or not he was to appear telephonically. And we all agreed that if there was a need for him to appear, it would be fine with everybody that it was telephonic. And the state would then indicate at some point, if we needed him, that we could just get him on the phone. So while he's here, I suspect he just wants the limelight, but I have no questions for him.
All right, I will release Mr. Searcy from his subpoena and the previous order that he not participate in any media interviews. Mr. Searcy, I'm releasing you from your subpoena. You are free to go, and you may participate in media interviews at your discretion. All right, thank you for being here. Other
Don't forget
witnesses?
to go over to MLS and hit the
Judge,
like button.
well, yes, we're going to try to get a hold of Ms. Juban. The other issue being Ms. Hughes is here. We have a subpoena for which to serve her on as a potential witness for the trial, and we would ask that, well, we're going to do that now, but also that she be excused from any further proceedings and be restricted from watching the trial, as was the order previously.
All right, Ms. Hughes, you are going to be receiving a subpoena here momentarily. What that means is that you should not discuss anything about your testimony with anyone other than the attorneys, and you should not watch the proceedings from this point forward. All right? Mr. Nurmi?
I like these little interludes. We're definitely going to have to
Yeah.
get this music downloaded.
Yeah, this is a Creative Commons license. I got it on the tweets.
Yeah. We'll throw that in the description, and we'll see if we get
Yeah.
any issues. Once again, thank you to Vielhammer for remastering this audio and posting all of these. There is a link to his channel in the description, and I hope everyone goes over and subscribes to him. He's got Sarah Boone stuff too. I was looking at it a little bit. He's got some Sarah Boone stuff and Jodi's interrogations and all kinds of stuff. It's very cool.
We're not going to be able to call Ms. Juban today. So no further witnesses today.
I'm wondering what the reason would be. Do we have a working number, or or what the problem is?
Well, Mr. Nurmi, are you at liberty to discuss why we can't have the witness testify today?
We're not able to get a hold of her.
All right.
Everyone
Just
has
my
to go over to
understanding
MLS
is
and
that
like the
we have
stream.
Not working. So there's a problem with that.
Well, in any event, she's not
Okay.
available. Do you have anything else that you want to
No, we're at
present
42,
in
damn it.
terms of evidence related to your pending motion?
No, Your Honor, not in terms of evidence at this time. Something tells me we will in the future
Use
as this
this way
trial
up.
goes on, but not at this time.
Mr. Martinez, anything you want to present at this point?
There has nothing that been shown. The issue involves Chris and Sky Hughes. There has nothing that has been shown that indicates that they did anything improper or that the state did anything improper. They may want to call anybody in the rest of the world, but that will not add anything to this inquiry. So I'm asking the court to find that there is no prosecutorial misconduct.
Well, now that the state has informed us they don't have any surprise witnesses popping out of the room, I guess we could go to the argument portion
It's
of
not
this.
condescending at all.
There has been,
Shade.
and what the case law tells us, judges, if misconduct of the prosecution
Definite
so infects the
prosecutorial
proceedings
misconduct.
with unfairness
Yeah.
that Ms. Arias cannot receive a fair trial, then a mistrial is warranted based on prosecutorial misconduct. And it is our position that we are there and then some. In that regard, as far as what misconduct has occurred during the course of this trial, there's been so much, and there's been so much that has preceded this trial, that I could go on for hours. But instead, I'll just limit it to what I might call a greatest hits list. Even as it relates to this hearing, when the initial evidence was brought forth, Mr. Martinez and the state brought forth two surprise witnesses that we did not know anything about. They claim, oh, well, we didn't know what it's about, and that's not true. We gave notice, and we know they knew because Mr. Martinez had his paralegal contact other witnesses, people he knew were listed as witnesses, to get information on Mr. Searcy. He knew. And that's how he knew to bring Chris Hughes and have Mr. Abdallah on the phone. He knew, and he claims ignorance. That's his defense.
That's serious.
It is not a defense
I'm really
in
curious to
this
see that Court of
situation.
Appeals opinion now.
Yeah.
And
This
we
should
talked
have
about
been
as well. We said that he,
tossed
through
out.
early proceedings before this court was presiding over this case, he said messages didn't exist. Text messages did not exist. Well, we heard testimony from his own detective that they were on the phone. But he files a pleading saying text messages don't exist. We also, in this greatest hits list, have the testimony of Detective Flores. Detective Flores
There
goes
must
to the
have been
Cronus hearing
hearings
and says that it was Dr. Horn's
to this.
opinion that the shooting came first. At trial, Dr. Horn testifies differently, and then even within the context of this trial, Detective Flores was on cross-examination. He was asked asked to explain the discrepancy, shall we say. His testimony was that it was a misunderstanding, and this is laid out in the special action that we filed with the Court of Appeals. He says it was a misunderstanding, I misunderstood what Dr. Horn said, repeatedly. Then, on redirect, Mr. Martinez asked him, were you substituting, whose assessment was it about the gunshot?
I agree,
first?
Solomon.
It was mine. I was substituting my own judgment. That's what he said during redirect. One of those is not true. We know that. We know that either he misunderstood or he substituted his own judgment. Both cannot be true. Those statements cannot be reconciled. Also, throughout the course of this trial, the state, counsel for the state has yelled at witnesses, has thrown evidence on the ground,
He has. He's yelled at his own witnesses.
and then, as the evidence shows today, he did something which is in direct violation of a court order. We filed a motion, and this court granted a motion saying that the witnesses to this trial were not to watch the proceedings involved. That was ultimately an extension of what we call the rule. Given the media coverage, the court grants that extension. And Mr. Martinez knew that Chris and Sky Hughes were on the witness list. He knew they weren't supposed to be watching the trial.
It
Now,
can
the
be.
court order may not have been completely enforceable against them in Utah, but he knew. And his assistant or paralegal, whatever his title is, Philip, that we've learned of today, had contact with Ms. Hughes. Ms. Hughes just told us this morning that, in fact, yes, whenever something was wrong or something she thought would help, what she called Travis's case, but ultimately the state's case, she said, yeah, she would let him know. She would call Philip, she would speak to Mr. Martinez. They asked, there was even comments about, did you ask whether you were on the witness list? He didn't say they were listed. He didn't tell him that. He knew they were listed. He knew it. He said he didn't know if they were going to be called or not. So the sin does not lie with Chris and Sky Hughes because the order was not enforceable upon them. The sin lies right here. Because he knew it, he's an officer of the court, and he acted and procured information in violation.
I read the prosecutor's book, by the way, on this. Surprising, he left all of this out of his book. It's not anywhere in there. It's amazing.
What?
Well, I think he cherry-picked his stories.
What? Yeah. Now I
That
want to
court
read Nurmi's book.
I do, too. I want to read his book. Nurmi, by the way, someone had made a comment about this guy treated Jodi like OJ, except he didn't get famous from it. No, he didn't. And he also lost his license, and then because of his book, and now he's on court TV giving commentary once like a month. I see him on there. I don't know what he's doing, but it did not work for him.
But
That,
but
again,
everything in this tells me that this is borderline prosecution of misconduct in a way that actually could have made her walk.
Yeah, it could have. And apparently Chris and Sky Hughes wrote a book about Travis after the trial, too. We're going to have to read her book, the one that just got off the stand, and her husband. Everyone's writing books about this. Well, I'm going to buy them, so.
Yeah, okay. Now we get to understand what the appellate court opinion was about.
Yeah, he
Because
lost his
these-
license for writing the book and violating attorney-client privilege.
Yeah. I mean,
Our friend Travis.
but
I'll look it
in
up.
my opinion, she was definitely denied a fair trial.
Well, definitely on some of these parts. Again, I don't know how critical this witness particularly was, but, definitely some issues.
Yeah.
is
Our friend
more
Travis.
misconduct that gets us past that issue of infecting the proceedings. Because he is then getting coached by a witness that he knows not supposed to watch the trial with tidbits of information that she thinks would be helpful. So the question becomes, what do we do? What sanction, if any, is appropriate? I would submit to the court to have impose no sanction is to condone the behavior, is to say there are no consequences for the behavior. That does not seem appropriate in this context. Ms. Arias' life is at stake, and the state is violating an order of this court, has made misrepresentations, and if there's no consequence, there's no reason to stop. No, is there? Now, there's no doubt about the fact that a mistrial is a severe remedy, but we asked for it given the misconduct and the level of misconduct in this case.
I'm sure she had a lawsuit.
But I would
So-
also submit to the court that there are other remedies available. Well, one related to the mistrial is that we would assert not only should a mistrial be declared, but the Maricopa County Attorney's Office should be withdrawn from the case because they have procured information in violation of the court order. But I would, as I said, as an alternative to a mistrial, the one clear remedy this court has is to remove or negate the finding of the death penalty. The death penalty is eligible. This is a sanction that can be imposed on the state because it doesn't affect the merits of the
Oh,
case.
that's
It is a
interesting.
less onerous sanction.
That's actually a good
What we're really
approach.
talking about, Your Honor, is removing a sentencing option. The Arizona law, and we instruct the jury on this, is always satisfied with the life verdict. The sentencing option of death is not a requirement under Arizona law. It is something that they are seeking. But their behavior and misconduct in this case warrants that potential to be taken away. We think it warrants a mistrial, but if the court's not so inclined, we believe that removing that sentencing option is also a sanction that this court should consider.
Mr. Martinez.
There is no law that was cited by the defendant that indicates or that prohibits the prosecution from contacting individuals that may have information, whether they are subpoenaed or not. In this case, these individuals were not subpoenaed. There's no indication that the defendant was going to call them. The subpoena was sent out today. And the state indicated that we would not be calling them as a witness. So for the defendant to then shift the burden over to the state to contact a person, anybody in the world or anybody that they may call, and say, these are your obligations. That's not what the rules contemplate. If they really were going to call these people as witnesses, why don't they subpoena them? As they indicated to you previously, the process to get a witness into this court out of state is long and protracted. And they've complained that they weren't even able to comply with that. So if they really were serious about these people as witnesses, why didn't they start the process back then? It's a sham to stand up here and say, well, these people were going to be witnesses. The other thing is that even if they were witnesses, the state can contact them. There's no prohibition, just like he can get on the phone and contact Detective Flores. They've exchanged emails before. There's no prohibition about that. In fact, that involved the TLSI issue, where they exchanged emails and the prosecutor was not kept in the loop. So this idea that somehow the rules say that the prosecution can't contact a witness, there's just no support for that. And so in light of what has been presented, the evidence, in light of all of the pleadings, and in light of the law, I ask you to dismiss what really is nothing more than a sham allegation of prosecutorial misconduct. Thank you.
I don't know about
Mr.
sham,
Nervi, anything
sir.
else?
Yes, Your Honor, in response briefly, this is far from a sham. The misconduct upon the state and then pleading a level of victimization is almost laughable if it weren't what was happening here in the context.
I have the
that
notion
it's
those two
happening.
doesn't like each other.
Yeah, I don't
The
think so.
lack of subpoena, the fact that somebody is on the witness list, may or may not be called, is something that happens all the time. Something that happens all the time. The state had numerous witnesses on their list that they decided not to call throughout this process. And it is not about contacting witnesses. It's not what we're talking about here. This is talking about information obtained that he knew was in violation of court order. He said, they cite no law. This judge, and we put law in our motion asking the rule to be extended to witnesses watching it on TV. This court granted that motion.
It's kind of a new
The state
thing back
was
then.
present. The state objected to it, and this court granted it. It's a matter of violating a court order and obtaining information. And Your Honor, that is misconduct in and of itself, but it is but one in a series of events or actions upon the state for which sanctions should be imposed. And as the case law tells us, it is the cumulative nature of those instances of misconduct that get us to the point where a mistrial or other sanctions should be imposed. And I've listed those for the court.
Mr. Nermi, was Guy Hughes listed on the state's disclosure of notice?
Chris and Sky Hughes were on, I believe, both notices. I know that they were on ours. And I don't have the exact date and time, but we could certainly provide that to the court.
Did you make any effort to contact Sky or Chris Hughes to tell them they could not watch the proceedings?
No, as a matter of fact, Judge, this court instructed the state to do that as well with their witnesses, and I believe they were on their witness list as well.
Judge, but we did file a questionnaire which indicated the witnesses that would actually be called by either side. I did not list Chris and Sky Hughes. The defense did. That's on record.
But again, Judge, and I would say respectfully, the court's question goes to Chris and Sky Hughes, not Mr. Martinez. If they were in violation of the court order, it wouldn't be misconduct. But if they contact the prosecutor's office and share information that they believe would be helpful based on the fact that they're watching the trial, that's where the problem lies. And please don't be confused by that, because we're not talking about sanctions against Chris and Sky Hughes for violating the court order. I would agree with the court. Okay, even whether we made contact or not, and we didn't know whether we were going to call them or not, but regardless of whether we made contact and said, hey, don't watch the trial, they would be under no obligation, and their disposition would be probably to hang up on us or ignore our requests. It would have been futile. The issue is the contact with the state and the state using that information.
Well, Mr. Nurmi, I didn't hear Sky Hughes testify that she told Philip or Mr. Martinez that she was providing information based upon her review of, or her viewing the media coverage of this trial. In fact, what I heard her say is that she and Chris Hughes received emails, texts, telephone calls, and that as a result of that, contact was made with the prosecutor's office. Now, it may be that she did tell Philip or Mr. Martinez that, but I did not hear her say that in her testimony.
There was a portion of her testimony where she said she had other contact, but there was also portions of testimony where she said she watched the trial and reported to them. And whether or not the state knew,
Is the judge going to order a mistrial?
whether
doubt
the state or not, whether the state knew or didn't know she was watching the trial, they knew she shouldn't have been, and they knew where this information was coming from. She was looking for inconsistencies in contacting Mr. Martinez's assistant. And I think then, and just the same when we talk about the withdrawal of the county attorney's office, it leads me to questions. We have this argument whether the assistant to Mr. Martinez is now a witness meriting the withdrawal of the county attorney's office. This man was having contact with Ms. Hughes. And if he knew, and even though I would submit he did, because that's what Ms. Hughes talked about, looking for inconsistency and having contact with Philip, using a straw man does not absolve Mr. Martinez of the responsibility of violating this court order.
All right.
Yeah, they were seeking a death penalty, but they didn't get it at the end of the day.
Stated by the defense have already been addressed by this court, either through a previous ruling by Judge Duncan or by a ruling by this court. And some of those issues have even been addressed in a special action, which was denied. With regard to the issues raised with regard to Chris and Sky Hughes, the court finds that the defense has not established there was any prosecutorial misconduct. So the request for mistrial or some other sanction is denied at this time. All right, let's get ready for trial. Let's get the jury ready.
All right, I think that's a good spot for us to end. We've gone an hour and a half, a little bit longer than normal for a Tuesday Jodi stream. Very interesting.
But this was very interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently there has been prior hearings about this that I'm really interested in now.
Yeah.
I do know we skipped one day, didn't we?
Nope, we didn't skip any day. That I'm aware of. You skipped a day when I couldn't stream on your channel. No, we didn't skip anything.
No, it was a 10-day where there were no trial. So maybe they had.
Oh, they did. Yeah,
that.
that's right. They did have a bunch of hearings that they were conducting, and those weren't broadcast. So we didn't get those, or at least I don't know where they are if they were broadcast. So that was probably when it was first addressed, and that was right after the state's case in chief before the defense went. So she was apparently reporting information to the state. It sounds like before that, but even after that too, during Jodi's essentially 5 days now on the stand, 4 days now on the stand, she's been reporting stuff.
Yeah, and then they had that surprise, the state surprise witness, Mr. Hughes, on the state's case. And if they didn't have the information from the Miss Sky or whatever her name is, they might not have called him. And his testimony might have counteracted a defense strategy, thanks to her Yeah.
It's definitely misconduct by the prosecutor, because the prosecutor knew that they were on the witness list and specifically engaged with this woman through proxy or through directly engaged with this witness to gather information and be like, ooh, what's that? Or and this witness is specifically reaching out to the prosecutor's office, where the prosecutor's office, whether it was Nurmi or not Nurmi, whatever his name is, the prosecutor himself or not, should have known, like, hey, this is a witness on a witness list. You cannot talk to us. That should be the instructions. I've had parties that are like where there's a quasi-criminal and a civil case going on. I had a party call me once to try to negotiate a criminal plea deal instead of the prosecutor. I was like, I can't talk to you about this. And then immediately contact the prosecutor's office. So it's what you do.
Yeah.
So this sounds like misconduct. The question is it egregious enough? We don't know what this witness was going to testify to. Presumably there were prior hearings about this as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that was more developed as to what exactly they would have said. And maybe the judge could say, it's not really material enough, it's ancillary. If it's a character assassination on Travis, it might not be necessary. You know, it doesn't go to one of the fundamental facts. We're talking about stuff we don't know, essentially. So whether or not to say this decision was proper or not, I feel like the Court of Appeals is probably going to have a better answer for us.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know when we will get to that, but since it is the Court of Appeals, that will be in sometime next year.
Yeah, sometime next year. Jody's going to take us all the way through Christmas. Jody on the stand, anyways. But thanks everybody in chat for joining us. And let's see here. You have 47 and I have 54 likes.
What?
But we tied on super
Everybody
chats and
get
gifts.
over to my channel.
No, we're done. We're
now
ending
and
it. It's
press
too late.
press that thumbs up right now.
For those of you who are just joining us, we have a super chat and member gift competition every stream, just for fun, because we are dual streaming, and we also link both of our streams at the top. And I'm going to give one more shout out to Vielhammer for producing the awesome quality videos that we're seeing with the remastered sound and everything. It's awesome. He's got a bunch of videos. He's got the whole trial. He's also got interviews of Jodi Arias, and he's got some other stuff like Sarah Boone as well. Oh, look at that. Test. $2 super chat from Making Law Stupid.
That's
It's
your
her favorite.
alternative. Isn't that your alternative account?
Yes. That's me. $2 for me. Look at that. But yeah, here's apparently he's been lurking in the background for a bit, but Waifu Kran sent me a link with his videos, and so I'll give her a shout out too for sharing that. Very good quality videos. And yeah, that's about it. Until next Saturday. Nick, do you have something coming up?
Oh, well, we have the Delphi case that I need to get caught up on after the defense will submit a 120-page motion of sorts. I haven't seen it yet, about the Odin Brotherhood, which is an American Odin cult of sorts that the defense is going to blame, instead of claiming it is one of the people in that. And so I'm going to...
kind of hard to prove that a cult exists and that it engages in those sort of activities, right? That's kind of an uphill battle for the defense.
Well, the Odin Brotherhood does exist, and it's not real. I mean, it's a real Odin Brotherhood. There's books about it from the creator of the Odin Brotherhood, but everything I read about it tells me, oh, this is a scam. But,
so we'll check that out. Look forward to that. I don't have anything pressing coming up except for Jodi, at least nothing planned because I'm still in Texas, but I'll be getting back and picking up on the Whitmer case. So.
Yeah, and I do have an update on the Young Thug RICO trial in Georgia that I will address, I hope, tomorrow or Thursday.
All right.
But
So
other
now,
than that, I don't really. Yeah.
so now we're tied. Well, you got a membership gift. I got a super chat, and but I
Okay,
win
now we can-
overall
now we
on the
can end.
likes. I win overall on the likes. All right, we're ending. Y'all have a good day. Take care. Thanks for
Yeah.
watching with us, and we'll see you on Saturday for another Jodi Day. Woo.
Yay!
State of Arizona versus Jodi Arias, verdict, count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder